Right, let's get straight into it. Imagine a guy with absolutely no official political title, but his phone contacts? They're a who's who of presidents, prime ministers, billionaires, and Hollywood elite. He's got his own private island, a private jet everyone called the Lolita Express, and this infamous black book with direct lines to the most untouchable people on the planet. We're talking, of course, about Jeffrey Epstein. And when he died under incredibly suspicious circumstances in a New York jail back in 2019, cameras mysteriously malfunctioning, guards supposedly asleep, it was officially ruled a suicide. But let's be real, the world didn't buy it for a second.
And honestly, public trust in our global institutions is completely shattered right now, which is exactly why this explainer is so absolutely crucial today. Because after the Epstein Files Transparency Act overwhelmingly passed in November 2025, the US Department of Justice was literally forced to show their hand. On January 30, 2026, they dropped a bombshell: 3.5 million documents, 2,000 videos, and 180,000 images. It's a staggering amount of data, and it changes everything we thought we knew. So today, we're going to break down exactly what this drop shows and uncover what the most powerful people on Earth were desperately trying to hide.
Section 1. An ordinary man's extraordinary network.
Okay, what's truly baffling here is just how fast this guy rose to power. Born in Brooklyn in 1953, totally normal middle-class family. No royal blood, no political connections. Then, in the 1970s, he somehow lands a gig teaching math at an ultra-elite school, despite not even having a college degree. Fast forward to the 80s, and suddenly he's rubbing elbows on Wall Street, at JP Morgan, eventually running his own fund that catered exclusively to billionaires. By 1998, he's buying his own private island. Like, how does that happen? Officially, the true source of all that wealth is still a giant question mark. But investigative journalists are pointing to these unverified whispers of ties to intelligence agencies like Mossad, and theories that this whole thing was a massive honey trap operation meant to compromise global elites.
And at the dead center of this web was his island and his enablers. You had the British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, daughter of the late media mogul Robert Maxwell, basically running the show. According to the prosecution, she was the one actively recruiting victims. Her French immunity deal totally fell apart, and she ended up convicted on 6 charges in 2021, landing a 20-year sentence. She was orchestrating those Lolita Express Boeing 727 flights, bringing powerful men out to the Virgin Islands. And get this, on Little St. James itself, there was this really bizarre, mysterious blue and white striped temple that was inexplicably demolished right after Epstein died. Just gone. And it was inside this very dark orbit that major figures, including tech giants like Bill Gates, were fully documented.
Moving on to Section 2, Justice or Cover-Up.
We really have to talk about the 2008 Palm Beach deal because it's wild. They'd identified over 40 victims. Federal prosecutors had drawn up a massive 60-count indictment against Epstein and 3 others, but then a total pivot. A shocking non-prosecution agreement gets signed in 2007. It was negotiated by Florida U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, and even the DOJ later had to admit this showed poor judgment. They dropped the federal charges entirely. So despite overwhelming evidence of trafficking, Epstein serves a measly 13 months in minimum security, and he was even allowed to leave for work during the day. Plus, the newly released DOJ files show an unfiled draft indictment from back then that still has 3 names totally blacked out.
Which brings us to August 10, 2019, the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. The anomalies here are they're staggering. The CCTV cameras outside his cell mysteriously malfunctioned. The guards who were supposed to be checking on him, they slept for 8 hours straight. And a newly released 2026 DOJ video proves they straight up falsified their log records. Epstein had literally been taken off suicide watch just 3 weeks after an alleged previous attempt. And to cap it all off, the medical examiner initially called the cause of death undetermined, before suddenly flipping it to suicide. This is despite neck bone fractures that forensic experts will tell you are incredibly rare for a hanging.
So you hear all that, and it's really no surprise that a CNN poll shows 66% of Americans believe the government is hiding the truth. People just aren't buying the official story. And that public skepticism, it echoes this incredibly chilling quote from Epstein's own lawyer, who flat out admitted his powerful clients had a lot to lose if Epstein ever got the chance to speak in court.
Which brings us to Section 3, 2026, the document drop.
When Congress forced that 427-1 vote, the global fallout was immediate, and I mean catastrophic. The consequences were truly historic. On February 19, 2026, Prince Andrew was actually arrested, which is a first for the British royal family. He'd already settled that case with Virginia Giuffre and lost his royal titles, but now he's out on bail. Just a few days later, on the 23rd, senior UK politician Peter Mandelson was arrested over alleged sensitive document sharing and resigned. Over in the academic world, Lawrence Summers stepped down from Harvard and OpenAI after emails came out showing him asking Epstein for dating advice about a young mentee. And Catherine Rumler, a former Obama White House counsel, resigned from Goldman Sachs. Why? Because her name popped up a staggering 10,000 times in the files, sometimes even referring to him as Uncle Jeffrey.
But this was definitely not just a US and UK problem. The dragnet went global, fast. These newly released files triggered investigations everywhere. You've got Indian billionaire Anil Ambani pulled in over documented texts and emails, arranging meetings between 2017 and 2019. Active police investigations are swirling around a former Norwegian prime minister. France's former culture minister, Jack Lang, is being probed, and sweeping new cases are cracking wide open across Turkey and Lithuania. It's like a massive set of dominoes falling.
Section 4. The Presidential Connections. Now we have to look at the most explosive part of these files, the highly documented, symmetrical ties to two incredibly different United States presidents. Let's just look at the facts. First, Bill Clinton. The flight logs officially document 26 trips on the Lolita Express, which includes humanitarian trips to Africa. In February 2026, he actually refused a congressional subpoena, sparking a contempt of Congress motion before he finally testified in a closed session, insisting he did nothing wrong. Then, Donald Trump. His name shows up over 3,000 times in the files, though mostly in news clippings. There is an unsubstantiated August 2025 FBI document compiling assault allegations, and they had a very well-documented friendship back in the 1990s. This includes that infamous 2002 quote where Trump called Epstein a terrific guy who likes women on the younger side.
Now, hold on, I need to make something absolutely crystal clear here. Despite the absolute media circus and these highly scrutinized connections we just walked through, there are absolutely no formal criminal charges filed against either president in the Epstein case, okay? What we are doing in this explainer is looking at documented connections, not confirmed crimes.
Finally, Section 5. What is being hidden? Because honestly, what actually got released points to something even darker. Hidden in that massive dump was a law enforcement sensitive 69-page memo from the DEA. It lays out this highly classified, totally secret 5-year investigation that kicked off back in 2010. And what were they tracking? Massive illegal narcotics and prostitution money transfers bouncing between New York City and the Virgin Islands. So what are we really looking at here? Drug money, human trafficking, or some sort of colossal international laundering operation?
And guys, here's the single most chilling number in this entire explainer: 14. According to that exact DEA memo, right alongside Epstein, there were 14 other high-level co-targets involved in these deeply suspicious money transfers. And as of right now, even after this unprecedented 2026 transparency dump, every single one of those 14 names is still entirely blacked out. To put the terrifying scale of this cover-up into perspective, yeah, 3.5 million documents got released. That's about 58% of the total files. And sure, those documents literally tore the world's elite apart, causing global resignations and arrests. But the really dark reality? 2.5 million documents, a massive 42% of the entire archive, are still locked away, completely hidden from public view.
But the clock is ticking. The pressure is absolutely mounting. Following the 2026 drop, you've got an unnamed US congressman issuing a furious, direct ultimatum. Release the remaining files in 30 days or face criminal liability. It's proof that this story is nowhere near over, and the people at the top are clearly terrified of what's still sitting in that vault.
So we're left staring at one massive, unavoidable question. If releasing 3.5 million documents can cause this level of global destruction, literally taking down royals, top politicians, and CEOs, what on earth is hiding in the remaining 2.5 million? What secrets are so dark, so dangerous, that they absolutely must remain classified?